Welcome to Minimalish. I'm your host, Desiree, and I want to encourage you to walk towards a simplified life and make room for what matters to you. Minimalism is the movement that's all about having less stuff so that you have more time for the things that you care about. It's become a pretty big thing, and it's changed my life. But sometimes it feels like minimalism has become about subscribing to a trendy movement and trying to do it perfectly. My goal is to help you find a sustainable, realistic version of minimalism that actually makes sense for your life. Minimalish is about grace-filled minimalism. It certainly is not about doing it perfectly. And each week, we'll talk about the topics of simple living, motherhood, decluttering, slowing down, mindset shifts, and everything else in between that will help us move towards a more intentional life. And I'll often invite a guest on to chat with me about these topics as well. I'm so glad you're here, friend. Let's dive in. Hi, friend. Welcome back to Minimalish. This is your August coffee date. Coffee date episodes are just a fun way to interview a friend and create a lighter episode for you all about some things we're loving. We get a little bit deeper usually in these episodes as well and talk about the things we're struggling with, talk about all kinds of stuff that is going on in our lives in these episodes. And I think they're really fun. You guys have loved them in the past. This one is particularly super fun because it was my first in-person coffee date with a friend other than my husband. That was the first coffee date that was in person. But this is the first one since then that's been in person, which it was just super fun. I will admit we were not drinking coffee. But today's coffee date is with Amber. You might know her from Delighted on a Dime on Instagram, where she has a blog named the same thing. And I actually connected with her on Instagram, and lucky for us, we live near each other, which is just such a blessing because to me, online community is great. I say it all the time that I love the community that this podcast has brought, but real life community is just a different level. There's really no comparison, and the fact that I could take a friendship off of Instagram and into real life is just really an opportunity that I'm grateful for. So in this episode, you will basically hear Amber and I find out that we are the same person. But we even found out even more as we were talking together outside of the recording. But really, we have so much in common, and I just really loved getting to know her. She came over to my house, we hit record, and we talked. And that's what you're going to see in this episode. Towards the end, we really dive into why minimalism has been a game changer for Amber, and we talk about her debt-free journey. So listen in for all of that. I think you're going to enjoy the whole thing. If you do, share it on Instagram and tag both of us. Tag me at Minimalish Desiree and tag Amber at Delighted on a Dime. I will link both of those accounts in the show notes in case you're not following along there already. So you can find us there. Make sure you let us know that you listened in, friend. Grab a cup of coffee and enjoy this coffee date. Okay, well, I'm so excited because this is I shouldn't say it's my first in-person coffee date episode because my husband's was my first one, but that's obvious. And today, though, I have my friend Amber Althouse. So Amber, tell us a little bit about what you do before we dive into our coffee date and who you are and everything like that.
Sure. So thank you for having me, Desiree. Yeah. I appreciate it. My name's Amber, and just kind of a quick backstory, I guess. So I have my husband's name is Dan, and I currently have one daughter. Her name's Eliana. We call her Ellie. She'll be 3 soon this fall, which is crazy. And we have another baby girl on the way. So I was a middle school math teacher, and now I'm a stay-at-home mom. Not to get too ahead, but we kind of made a big life change a few years ago, back in 2017, and we were working where my husband worked and where I worked. We're on opposite sides of Pittsburgh, and his commute was the commute that was worse. And as a teacher, and you understand, as a teacher, and your husband understands, you have your good days and bad days, and I was starting to feel like I was having more bad days than good days, and after we had our daughter, I would say the commute that my husband had was getting longer because his office actually moved further away. And then we decided hey, something's got to give. So we had built what we thought was going to be our forever home in 2013. And we decided, you know what, after we had our daughter, we took a step back and we thought, we always thought we couldn't afford for me not to work, but we realized that the reality was that we could. We just needed to make some changes and focus on what really mattered to us at that time. So we reprioritized and we kind of questioned, did having this bigger house really make us happy? And so that's when we decided for me to become a stay-at-home mom, and we moved to the other side of the city to be closer to Dan's work. And now we live in a townhouse and we downsized. And through all of this, we kind of discovered like two main things was the power of monthly budgeting now that we were on one income, and the power of living with less stuff. So that was kind of like my why for starting my blog and Instagram.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like our stories are so similar. I mean, down to the fact that we are both teachers.
Yes.
And we just found out we both have husbands who are obsessed with wrestling. So we've got a lot in common.
Which is rare.
Yeah, it is rare. Like not like the WWE type of wrestling, like actual high school, college wrestling.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, it's just so fun that we live in the same area and we get to actually meet up here over my creaky table, by the way. Sorry about any background noise. I'm not forcing Amber to sit in my super hot, sweaty office. So we're going to dive into our coffee date, which is funny because we're not actually drinking coffee. It's in the middle of the day because I really want to know, what do you drink on a coffee date? Like, what's your favorite thing?
So I would say in the morning, I'm pretty typical, just like hot coffee with a sweetened creamer. I would say like my Starbucks go-to is usually a chai latte, either iced or hot. It just, I guess, depends on my mood or the weather. I don't know. I'm pretty easy to please, so I'll kind of drink whatever as long as it's sweet. I like sweet coffee.
I like sweet coffee too. I just throw stevia in my coffee usually every day, but I love the chai lattes are so good at Starbucks, and their matcha I really like too.
Yeah.
So kind of going back to your story real quick, I have like one question. Did you discover minimalism like through that transition, or was it like a catalyst to making that transition for you? How did that work?
Absolutely. So when we decided, hey, we could live smaller. We don't need this much space. We were like, you know what, let's do this. And we started selling a bunch of our stuff to make the move, since we knew we were going to have a lot less square footage. At our old house, we had a whole storage room, like in our basement. Like we had a finished basement and then we had a storage room. And the stuff that just had accumulated down there because we didn't have to think about it was crazy. And so we ended up getting rid of a ton of stuff in that room, a ton of furniture that we knew we weren't going to need at our townhouse. So at that time, I don't think we really realized that we were on a path to quote minimalism.
Right.
But that was kind of the start of it, was just recognizing like, for the most part of when we were living in that house, we were just two people. We didn't even have our daughter yet. And we were like, where did all this stuff come from? And why do we need it? And we realized it wasn't making us happy. Like it wasn't adding any value to our lives.
Yeah, it's so interesting how that happens. We had the same thing. We had like a 4-bedroom home, and it's just like the extra space makes you just want to add stuff to it. Like you can't just have this empty room.
Yes, it invites the clutter. Oh, and for sure. And we were even just talking about that the other day, how, we had a full finished basement and we used it a decent bit, but like it wasn't the most used room in our house. But it was so important to me when we were moving in that like it had to have furniture, it had to have everything done. And looking back, I'm like, man, I wish I could have told myself then what I know now is just like, it doesn't really matter. Like you don't have to fill all of your space with stuff.
Yeah. So good. So true. Okay, so I have my like typical coffee date questions, and we're going to talk a little bit more about like minimalism and debt free and how that relates to you as well, because I like to really focus in. I feel like my coffee date episodes are basically just like fun questions plus I want to know more about what you do. But so my first question is, what's something that you're loving and something that's kind of like making your life better right now?
So this is a tough question. I would say first thing I'm loving right now is, and I have been for a while, is just taking the time for me during Ellie's nap time, I know her nap time is limited, I'm sure at this point, since she's almost 3. And at one point, I don't know, and seasons of motherhood change a lot, but at one point I was using her nap time to get a lot of stuff done. But then I would say recently, and especially being pregnant again, it's just like that time I just need to like chill out. So taking that time for me to just like recharge my batteries. Some days I take a nap too. And that just really helps me kind of be a better mom for them when she wakes up from nap time. So that's something that I would say, something I'm loving recently. But then I would say kind of as a bigger picture, something that is always making my life better consistently is just my husband. He's just always been like the best teammate, such an amazing father, so hands-on, Ellie. And he just totally gets, like, my love language is acts of service. And I feel like he was just made for the acts of service love language. So he totally gets, like, in the evenings, he'll do little things around the house for me that he knows I appreciate so much. So so he's the best.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that that's what you're loving. That's such a, like, it's deep, but it's just, it seems so genuine, especially in this season. I'm sure for you, you're feeling real tired. When are you due?
So first week of November, but she'll probably come early, like right around Halloween.
Okay.
So,
yeah. So it's just in the heat.
I know.
Did you, when your first, was she a fall baby too?
She was. So she'll be 3 in October. So they'll be almost exactly 3 years apart.
Yeah.
So
I always say, because Gemma's a fall baby, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do that again.
That's why I always feel bad some days whenever I'm like, oh, I can't be outside for that long.
Yeah, it's so hard. Oh man. Okay, well, let's talk about something that you're struggling with right now. So what are you struggling with, and kind of how are you either making it through, if you are, or pushing through, whatever you want to call that?
So I would say the biggest thing I'm struggling with right now is just, and I kind of beat myself up for it, but I'm trying to give myself grace, and I know you talk about that a lot, is just waking up before my daughter in the morning. And I was on such a kick with this for, I would say, the better part of a year before I got pregnant. And it was awesome. Like, I was getting up before her, I was exercising, I was making my own breakfast, and I had like time to read, a devotional, and just really time for me. And then when she woke up, I was just kind of like perky and ready to go. And then, since I got pregnant, like first trimester of pregnancy for me is like not my ideal time in life. So that just fell by the wayside. So I've just been choosing to sleep in, and she walks into our room every morning and wakes me up very pleasantly, but she just walks in, hi mommy, good morning mommy. But yeah, so I've been trying to give myself grace with that, because I know it's such a short season of life, and I know I'll get back to it, but it is something that I know is so good for me, like whenever I do actually do that. So yeah.
It's hard. I know. Are you waking up a lot right now too?
Yes. And I feel like when I wake up in the middle of the night, then I'm like, okay, now I'm up. It's 3 a.m. Like, what now? But so I feel like my sleep is not great. And I think in my mind, especially like you're tired, like I'm still half asleep mind, I'm like, well, I know I'm going to be waking up with the baby soon anyway, so I should get all the sleep I can now. So, I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. I think
it's a catch-22.
Yeah. Like, I so, like you, even like you said, like, I so believe in the power of mornings, but at the same time, it's like, I know that there are seasons where that just can't happen. And I mean, some people who are gung-ho about it will be like, push through, but
I know. And I would love to. I tell myself sometimes at night, like, I'm gonna wake up early tomorrow. And then I'm like up in the middle of the night for like an hour, just laying.
It's like, no.
So I know it's a short season. So I will get back to it, but it is, I feel like I've even blogged about it before, like waking up early, like you've talked about it. So I'm sure I have, but now I'm not even following my own advice.
I know that when I've been saying lately, like, I'll see babies right now and I'll be like, oh, I really, it's like getting closer to that time where I'm like, oh, I'm kind of ready. But fever. I keep saying that I want a baby, but I don't want to be pregnant.
Yeah, it's hard.
Not because of mornings, but not only, I mean, that's one reason, maybe.
Right.
No, all the things with pregnancy.
Things
Pregnancy, at least for me, I mean, I know some people just love it, but
yeah, it's hard.
It is hard.
And you do forget.
I know. I think that I need a little bit more time to forget before I dive back into it.
Yeah.
I haven't forgotten enough yet. Okay. So this is one of my favorite questions, and I would love to know either all three or just one, whatever you want to talk about, something you're reading, watching, or listening to that you just want to tell everyone about.
Okay, so I have like several.
That's okay. I love it.
I know. Great. This is like my jam. Well, first thing what we're watching is we're so late to this party, but we're currently watching Parks and Rec.
We are too.
For the first time. We never got into it we tried, and we were like, I don't get it. Like, we watched a few episodes, and now we gave it another shot. So we're in the last season now, so we were like in it. Although I've been falling asleep a lot watching it. But yeah, so that's what we're currently watching is Parks and Rec. And then I've read several books recently, and I'm such a type of person that loves to like really dive into something. And so I've been really on the like minimalist, simple living kick with what I've been reading. So what I just finished reading was Inner Order, Outer Calm by Gretchen Rubin, and I really recommend that book. It's a quick read, like it's an easy read. It's just kind of like each page is a little nugget of wisdom from her, some of which I had already known, but she definitely gave me some things to like chew on. So I really liked that book. I also more recently I read The Minimalist Home by Joshua Becker, which is like more of a tactical approach to minimizing your home. So I still liked it, even though we've kind of been in the minimizing process for a while. I still found it helpful. I think I am somebody who likes reading things, even if I've already done it, it just helps me to like go back and process and maybe revisit certain areas of my house and things like that. So I really like The Minimalist Home. And then I also loved the first Joshua Becker book I read was The More of Less, which I liked that first. That might have been one of the first minimalism books I read. And then I also just listened to the audiobook The Year of Less by Kate Flanders, and I really liked her story. She talks about how she did a year-long shopping ban, and in conjunction, she decluttered and minimized her house, and how they kind of worked simultaneously together, the shopping ban and minimalism, to affect her life in so many ways. So yeah, so all good stuff I've been reading.
Yeah, I know. I've noticed you posting about them, and I feel like you're just flying through them, which is awesome. Do you read a lot during nap time?
I do. I read a lot during nap time or at night, like laying in bed to try to get myself sleepy. Yeah. And then listening, like I love the Hoopla app.
Oh, okay.
I know not everybody has it with their local library, but I know another one is the Libby app.
Yeah, that's what my library has.
Yeah. So there's some apps that can connect to your library. But anyway, I love the Hoopla app, and so I listen to a lot of audiobooks on there while I'm driving, if Ellie's not talking my ear off.
That's great. I've read both Joshua Becker books, and I have liked those. So
yeah, he's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I love The More of Less. I feel like it just gave such the
big picture,
the why, of minimalism, which is great. So I will link all of those in the show notes, though, so everyone can check them out. Okay, and also I think it's so funny that we seriously had the same experience with Parks and Rec, because at first we just couldn't get into it, but I think there's it takes a season or something with it, and now I'm obsessed.
And we tried to watch Parks and Rec, didn't get into it, and then we watched The Office because we were also late to that party. So we watched The Office, and then we were like, okay, and we love The Office, and then we were like, okay, let's go back and try Parks and Rec again. And we had to give it some episodes to get into it, and then we did. So
yeah, it was so funny. Yeah. Okay, so now we're talking about minimalism a little bit more. What's something you're simplifying right now?
So for the month of August, we're doing Min's Game, which some of you guys have probably heard of. But it's basically, it was developed by the Minimalists, Joshua Fields Milburn and Ryan Nicodemus.
Yeah.
And so, you take a month, and every day of that month, you get rid of the number of things that are equivalent to the day of that month. So 1 thing on August 1st, 2 things on August 2nd, and so on. So that's kind of where we're at now so it's August 10th today. So I'll find 10 things today that we want to get rid of. So I'm not really focused right now on one particular area. I would say we've definitely done a decluttering in pretty much our whole house at least once. So we're sort of in the phase of maintenance and taking another hard look at different areas of our house and going back through. So I think Men's Game is kind of helping me do that, as like, hey, open up this box. What's in here again? Do we really still want to keep this stuff? Have we used it since we last looked in this box? So that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking about the Men's Game literally a few minutes ago, because I was thinking about our conversation, and I remember you were doing that. And our like behind the couch toy area keeps getting a little more messy than I like it to be. I mean, I don't care if it's super tidy. Yeah. But it's just like there's a bin back there that's filled with random stuff, and it keeps getting dumped on the floor. It's just like
toys do that. Multiply, because I try to keep only so many toys in our living room and the rest in like the playroom, and they still, I feel like she just brings things up. Like she just brings things in and they just multiply. They
really do. And it's like all the most random stuff gets grouped together, at least over here. I'm not super organized to be able to, I'm like, I can't manage.
Toys are hard.
But yeah, it's good I feel like it's good to know that like the maintenance phase is just like life.
Yes, exactly. It is. And this is helping, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So what's something that you've been learning?
So I think something I've been learning is, especially I think from the perspective of someone who transitions to be a stay-at-home mom, is that I just can't hold myself to a standard that's impossible to reach. And I know you talk about that a lot as well. Because in my mind, while I would love to go into every single day as a stay-at-home mom and a homemaker and just like crush everything, I know it's just not possible. And that's something that I feel like I consciously have to remind myself, because I think it's like, I don't know, it's like my Enneagram type 1, like perfectionist type of personality, that I would like to be like that, but it's just not going to happen. So I don't know. It's like I was kind of in my mind listing all of these things that I was like, ideally in a day, I would love to exercise, tidy up the house, make sure everything's clean, like do creative activities with Ellie and make healthy food. And it's hard to be on your A game every single day. So I think it's like just learning how to give myself grace while kind of in this season.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a hard balance, because I feel like that's something I've been learning. I mean, I think it's something I've been learning really all year, because I remember making it a goal in January to I was like, I want my stay-at-home mom life to be thriving, and I want Gemma's days to thrive. That was like my word for the year, is thrive. And in my head that month, I focused on, okay, I'm going to see what can I sign her up for, and what things I need to schedule for at home, and I need to make sure we're doing like this at home every day, like this creative thing, and I need to make sure I'm tidying on this schedule every single week. And then I realized that's not how I thrive, at least. And it's been now like this summer, my husband's been home, so that's been nice. But as we kind of go back into the school year, I'm like, okay, what does that look like? Because it doesn't look like throwing it all away, because at the same time, we're home, and that's part of because we both stay at home, that's part of, what we hold ourselves responsible for, is caring for our children in our homes. So it's like, what does that look like? But definitely the grace part is, I think, most important. Okay, so I really want to talk a little bit about, more specifically to what you do and what you talk about. I'm always really inspired by your Instagram, and I know you have a blog as well. So you talk about minimalism and debt-free living, and I want to hear, how do those things go together for you with, did those two journeys start at the same time, and how do they play into each other?
Right. So whenever, like I kind of mentioned before, whenever we started our downsizing journey, and just started selling things, donating a lot of things just to make that move work physically. Like I said, I don't think we necessarily knew we were on a path to minimalism, but that's kind of where we were headed. And then shortly after we moved, I found myself looking up like different budgeting methods, because it was a change, even though, we had done the hard legwork of moving. I knew we still needed to be a little bit more like intentional with our budget now with one income. So I discovered Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover, and I read that pretty quickly. And then my husband read most of it too. And we kind of did, I think with any resource, right? You kind of take the things that you need from it, and you just leave the rest. And that's kind of what we did. So we're not like, I would call them Dave Ramsey purists, which is fine, if you are, but we kind of took what we needed and we left the rest. And the biggest takeaway I would say with budgeting for us was keeping a zero-based budget every month, which a zero-based budget, if you don't know, is just allocating every dollar of income that you receive into a certain category, and that includes savings as well, until you have $0 left. So we started zero-based budgeting, and that was kind of like a big game changer for us, was starting to look and say, wow, like, do we really want to be spending this much money on this every month? And we started, moving things around and reining in certain areas where we thought we were overspending, so to make other goals work. So we also then took away from Total Money Makeover. We also Dave Ramsey's big thing is being on a debt-free journey and living debt-free. So that was something we also wanted to make part of our life. So when we came into Dave Ramsey, we to be honest, we didn't have a ton of debts left personally. I was going through the student loan forgiveness program because I met the qualifications from teaching. Or not teacher loan forgiveness program. So I met the qualifications for that. And so I was kind of waiting to hear on that being like solidified. And then it was. So my student loans were gone, the rest of them anyway, because I paid on them for, up until that point. And then all we really had left was our one vehicle, which is the one that we still have left. And then our mortgage, of course. So our one vehicle that we have, we financed it new before we knew much about car depreciation or really thought consciously a lot about car depreciation. But when we financed it new, they offered us a deal for a 0% interest and loan. So we haven't had to pay a dime of interest on it. So for that reason, we haven't really been, as a lot of like debt-free people will say, gazelle intense with paying that off, just because for us, we were kind of like mathematically, it didn't really make a difference whether we paid it off sooner or whether we waited. So we decided to just kind of let that one ride out, and that's been our last, I guess, for lack of better words, consumer debt for a while. And we only have a few more months left to pay on that, and then all we'll have left is our mortgage. So that was kind of another big takeaway for us, was just becoming debt free, living debt free, and continuing to make that zero-based budget every month. And then how minimalism kind of worked its way into that was, I think they just go so hand in hand, minimalism and debt-free living, because, consumerism is just so normal today. Like, it's so normal to just have a ton of stuff and to go to Target and just, even the jokes about like don't like tell yourself what you need at Target, let Target tell you what you need or whatever, all these like memes and stuff. I just think it's so normal to want the bigger house with more storage and more closet space and more things. And so I feel like once you're more intentional with your mindset about what you bring into your house, then, you're going to have less, you're going to live with less, and then you're going to be able to save more and put more money to your goals and what really matters, rather than just stuff that you're probably not going to want one day anyway.
Yeah, that's so true. Was it hard? I just kind of thought of this because like the mindset thing is such a real part of it, because
for sure.
I think like, whenever you guys downsized, was that like a hard mindset shift for you? Did you feel like, I don't know, did you have people around you that you felt like might have something to say about it?
Yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking, and I feel like part of my motivation, that was kind of part of my motivation for starting my blog and my Instagram, was just sort of sharing that, you know, it's okay to not do what everybody else is doing. And something that I think really resonated with me, and I want to say it was in The More of Less by Joshua Becker. It might not be, but so don't quote me on that. But I think he said something like, you know, why do we keep buying bigger homes, or why is a starter home a thing? And then, you know, at some point it's just understood that you'll graduate to a larger home. And he kind of just said, well, because nobody really tells us not to.
Right.
Like, it's just kind of the natural progression of what society thinks we should do. And so because we were kind of going backwards, much like you guys, like we were saying, hey, we don't really need all of this space if we're not going to have all of this stuff anymore. So yeah, we were a little nervous of, I don't even know if nervous is the right word, but we were a little like, what are people going to think? But then we were kind of like, who cares what they think?
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so it was definitely something that we had to wrap our minds around first, and change our mindset and be really confident in what we were doing. And I think that part kind of came pretty easily to us. Like when we sat down and talked about it, we were like, hey, we're all in. We could keep living the life we're living, where we're both working and we're not really happy with, you know, Dan's commute. We're not really happy with, how I'm feeling with my job, and we can keep doing those things to afford this life, or we could make a change to afford a life that we want, that makes us happier. So it's a mindset shift for sure.
It is, yeah.
And I mean, and I don't think there's anything wrong with owning a big house at all.
Right.
But I think for us, I know it definitely just invited us to keep more things that we had to then maintain, that we didn't use, and it didn't add value to our lives in any way. So for us, like, downsizing has been a positive thing, and we have yet to think, man, I really wish we still had X amount of more space because we need to store this. Like, we have yet to really feel that way. So hopefully we'll be able to keep this lifestyle going as our girls grow up, and kind of having a smaller space, I think, will help keep our stuff in check.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so before we kind of close out our conversation, I really would love to hear just any advice that you have to someone just starting out on a debt-free journey specifically, because I don't talk about it as much because we are so in the beginnings.
Yeah.
And I mean, the very, like, trying to figure it out how it works for us. So I would love to hear from you kind of more towards the end of your journey. What is your advice for someone starting or thinking about it even?
Yeah. And like, first of all, you know, I would say my first piece of advice to anybody is just don't compare your debt-free journey to anybody else's, because everybody starts off at a different place. Like I said, when we kind of came into even actively thinking, hey, we're on a debt-free journey, like we're going to start living without any debts at all. We didn't have that much debt coming into that. But, you know, some people arrive at a debt-free journey because they feel overwhelmed with the amount of debt that they have. So I would say first, just don't compare your debt-free journey to anybody else's. If you're making the choice to live debt-free, I think that's awesome. And I think whatever progress you make, celebrate that progress as you go. And then I would say my second piece of advice would be just to make your first goal not to acquire any more debt, because sometimes that can be the most intimidating thing. Is if you're following like other people in the hashtag debt-free community on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, you'll see a lot of people making large debt payments every month. And while some people are able to do that, some people are not. So I would say make your first goal is just, hey, we're going to stop charging things or when we don't have the cash to pay it off and that sort of thing. So making that your first goal, I think is the beginning of where it all starts.
Yeah, that's really good. I like that thought. And just, I feel like that's where we're at. We're just like, I don't know. I see people like say like the tiny shovel.
Yeah, tiny shovel.
Dave Ramsey. That's like where we're at. So it's hard to, like, as much as I would like to be like, oh, I would love to get a lump sum of money and just pay down the debt. Like, exactly. That would be so satisfying. But also, like, when we have to, like, I don't know, it's like a long game.
It's like, you have to celebrate the small wins. And, like, I think that's something that I've even struggled with just because we have had this in my mind now, because I know that our end game is debt-free living. We have had this, like, car payment at 0% interest. It's still like, it nags at me now that we still have it. And I know that we like could just pay it off, but we have other financial goals that we wanted to meet sooner now with investing. So for us, it's funny because if I try to compare too much, I'm like, well, we could be debt free, or we're like, we're practically debt free, but I feel like that the comparison is dangerous because your situation is unique and what you feel comfortable with too is unique. So yeah, even though our end game is still the same, I think it's remembering that it's not a race. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the I guess negative part of comparing is that sometimes people make debt-free journeys a race to become debt-free. And yeah, you obviously want to pay off debts soon, but
yeah,
do what you can.
Right.
That's the best way.
It's just like anything on Instagram, I feel it can either
social media.
It can either make it a community to inspire you, or you can compare and make it a competition.
Yeah.
It's just that's exhausting. So
yes.
Don't do that.
Nope.
To myself and to everyone else. I feel like that's something I always have to tell myself.
Oh,
like, just stop. I mean, I'm not even a competitive person.
No,
I'm not like, everyone falls into comparison, so I won't say that that's not an issue for me, but it's just like, it just makes it, it's like somehow it's nature makes you.
I know. And I feel like social media is like, it's like good and bad all at the same time because like you said, it can be such a source of inspiration, but it can also be like detrimental. Yeah. So I think with social media, it's important to watch. Like I tell myself with social media, it's important to watch my own mindset about how I react to somebody else. I don't know if you follow Sarah at the Small Helm on Instagram.
Yeah, I think
she talks about how everything in life, generally speaking, everything in life is neutral. So when you see something on social media, for example, that whatever it is neutral, and it's up to you to process your reaction to it. And I really like that. And I tell myself that with a lot of things in life now.
Right. That's really good. Okay, well, social media is definitely a conversation on its own.
Yes.
A whole episode on its own.
Yeah.
But I am so glad that we got to chat in person and over this creaky dinner table. Yes. Sorry for the background noise again to everyone, but it's been really fun. So thank you for coming out.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay, friend, I hope you enjoyed this coffee date episode. If you did, make sure you share it with a friend, or share it on Instagram. You can tag both of us. Make sure you go follow along with Amber. I'm going to link everywhere you can find her in the show notes. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will talk to you in the next episode.